How do you feel when you try to take part in a group? It's super common for those of us who grew up with abuse and neglect to feel as adults that we're somehow not quite part of things. We feel like we're on the outside of groups, kind of part in, part out, but never really in it. Or we start as a full participant, but then pull away over time. We uninclude ourselves. Have you ever done this? Now, maybe you're resigned to the fact that groups are just not for you, but you might be still trying, joining groups, then getting uncomfortable or feeling excluded, and then dropping out again. And you probably think, I used to, that in each case the problem is the other people. And sometimes, of course, that is true. But the telltale sign that this could be something inside yourself, even when it doesn't feel like it, is that you're almost always at the same distance from the center. And by that I mean, like, every group has a center. In that center there's maybe a leader or two, people who are like kind of guiding the whole thing, and then right around them are a bunch of people who are super involved and influential in the group, but they're not quite as influential as the center. And then there's people who less so and less so. And then, like in my case, I'd be out here, always out at about 80% from the center. And it's kind of a spot where you get invited to the party, you get to comment on things sometimes, but you're never really responsible for making the party happen or solving problems. So a lot of times I'd start out motivated and thinking, this group is great, I finally found my people and I want to be involved in this. And then maybe take on a more active role or maybe even a leadership role. And sooner or later, usually sooner, I'd find some reason to pull back. I might go out to about maybe like 40% from the center. But eventually I just bounce out of the group altogether. That's usually what happens. Being part of something was, and in some areas of my life still is, really uncomfortable for me. So why is that? Do you relate to what I'm talking about? So I used to think my trouble with groups was just like bad luck. One episode of bad luck after another. Oh dear, I guess I joined the wrong group. And I never saw that it was a consistent pattern until I had a lot of healing from dysregulation and started to have some clarity. And it makes sense. I mean, being in a group, when you have the sensitivities of childhood PTSD, it can feel like too much. Dealing with a lot of people can feel like an assault on your senses, and it can get really emotional, really vulnerable. It's kind of like a high school experience that never ends. That's how I've felt it. And childhood PTSD is not the same thing as introversion. But I suspect there are similarities in that being social with people can take more energy than it gives. That's a characteristic of introversion. And that's what it feels like having PTSD sometimes. Because we're just working so hard to act normal, to deal, to fit in. And it's draining, right? But we're human. And we need people. And like everyone else, we need a sense of belonging. So it's natural that we gravitate to groups, but toward the outer edges. And that right out there, it's a little more manageable. We can be around people and be social a little bit, but just keep one foot outside the door in case we need to get the heck out of there. And it's okay to do that. Healthy groups have roles and spaces for many kinds of people. And it's okay not to participate fully for a while. Now, life would be great if you could keep going like that forever, just soaking up the group belonging feeling like the door is open if you want to go in deeper, but never risking too much of yourself and just staying peripheral to the group and having all your relationships be peripheral and shallow. And that's the problem. It can just make it really hard to develop closeness with anybody, to grow meaning in your life when you're just kind of hanging around the edges. Growth requires some friction. Friction is like when things get difficult. It's hard. It challenges you. You need some contact with people to develop social skills. Sometimes things have to feel a little bit awkward to practice what to do in awkward situations and make it graceful. Everyone practices this. And if they were raised, in a normal environment, their parents taught them this. If you didn't get that, or if for other reasons of trauma, it's just hard for you, then you can learn it now. Being on the periphery, the outside, keeps your contacts shallow. And that's what we want at first when we're healing. That's how we can sort of keep ourselves safe from setting off triggers. But shallow connections take a toll. And that connection that we crave, you got to watch out, because you could end up sort of making it a fantasy about the future, but something that you're avoiding in the present. In the present, we're still isolating. And then what starts as a kind of delay in our development can become a full-on deficiency. And next thing you know, you're getting more isolated than ever. And you probably know people in your life who have been isolating for a long time. And as people get older, it can happen. And what you'll notice, some characteristics you'll notice, is that people are either tending to get angrier or more spaced out. It's more dysregulated. There's something about other people that is very healing for us, as hard as it is, that helps us stay connected to reality. So you need to be taking some risks to grow your comfort zone a little wider. They don't have to be enormous every day. They can be small every day, but consistent. There are normal ups and downs of being part of friendships and groups. And if you're not participating in those, this is where that non-participation starts to get slippery. And before you know it, you can't really do the downs anymore. It feels like too much, and you're not getting included anymore. That's what happens. You start avoiding everybody, you say no to all the invitations, and you're not included anymore. And when that goes on for a while, you can start to get hard to include. And what it is, and this will sound harsh, but we get very self-centered. Not sharing ourselves with other people is an emergency protection measure, but not a way to live our whole lives. So the possibility of sharing ourselves is all around us. We can agree to bring something to a potluck dinner, or we can join a choir, or take a watercolor class, or invite friends out for a hike. When we show up for people in our lives, we grow less fragile and more flexible, less eccentric and more grounded, more connected, more included. And yes, it's demanding to be included. And isolation sounds so peaceful as an option sometimes. But if we allow isolation to take root long term, it will take over, and our very worst traits will have a field day. We grow crabbier, more self-centered, more bitter, more paranoid, and then it gets harder to turn the ship back toward connection again, because we've gotten too weird. That's the only word for it. I've said the word weird on YouTube before, and several people complained that it was being unfair, but I think it's fair. Weird. Isolation makes us all a weirder version of ourselves. And I don't mean good weird. Have you ever felt this beginning to happen to you just after you had a long stretch inside, maybe during lockdown? Have you seen this in other people? So take your alone time and then keep chipping away at your capacity to stay connected. I know many of you watching this video are there right now, just like wondering if any change is ever going to be possible for you. Will it be worth it? And I just want to tell you, yes, it is worth it. Yes, you can. You can start with one small action. You just show up. Take a shower, put on your coat, and go say hello to some people. You can go back to a group that you used to like. You can pay a visit to a friend you've been neglecting. You can sign up for a litter cleanup day or a blood drive or whatever your community offers as an opportunity to just show up. Just participate. Go to a farmer's market. And if you do one of these activities, a small thing every day, after a few weeks, you're going to find yourself included again. That's how it works. So the need to be included, it's not just a weakness, it's primal. We're born into community, and as much as we want to escape it sometimes and be independent, we can never really do that. And evolutionary biologists will tell you it's a survival strategy so that you have warmth and food and protection from predators and enemies. But it's not just physical. Inclusion is just as important for the growth and development of your being, your intellect, your spirit. Because without inclusion in human relationships, the blossoming of your whole real self, it gets arrested. It can't fully happen. Fulfillment can't come to you. You can't become yourself. And being included and connected is also crucial for your physical health. It's for your brain health. It wards off dementia. It creates a support system of people who care about you and who can come to your aid if you're broke or lonely or feeling like your life is falling apart. You're not meant to go through all that alone. You've probably done it before, but I don't want you to ever have to do that again. One-on-one relationships, that's one thing. If you have childhood PTSD, those can be just as hard as being part of a group. You need both, one-on-one groups. I know it feels hard, and that's because it is hard. And that's why we use titration. That's a word borrowed from medicine, where It means to like give a little bit of a dose and see how you tolerate it. Wait, then give a little more of the dose, see how you tolerate it. It's slowly testing your tolerance of things. And if you've been isolated for a long time, you get triggered easily, and I think all the lockdowns don't help. You might have to titrate a little. So you don't rush out and like throw a giant party. You go out and talk to a couple people and then come home and rest a little bit. Use the tools that I teach, the writing and the meditation techniques in the daily practice. That's a free course. It's linked down below. That's how I calm my CPTSD triggers. I've taught it to thousands and thousands of people. It's great. You can join me in Zoom calls if you take the course. That's a way to calm your triggers so that you can keep titrating a little more, a little more each day. The reward for that is that you get to be included, and included is secretly where we all want to be. Now, if you think your past trauma has affected your ability to connect and take part in groups, you might want to take my connection quiz. I've linked it down below in the description section. A lot of people in my membership program are working on their ability to connect in our secret Facebook group and in the courses and in peer-led daily practice calls. And you can find out how to be part of our community also down in the description section. It's called membership. You can become a member. I've got a video lined up for those of you who relate to this topic, and it's about one of the biggest reasons no one talks about that we are so isolated. And that video is right here, and I will see you very soon.